Hmm. Awesome. I want to welcome everyone out there. This is another beautiful day. It's a beautiful session that we're about to start today. This is Life and Relationship Realities with Tolu Alabi. And today is a special day. Everybody talks about Valentine, and it's a good thing. Why not? If not, even though sometimes I wish people can understand what love is really all about, that it goes beyond what we believe it or the world believes it to be. So that's why we're having this Valentine special today. I went out early this morning and I saw some people out there, and everybody was wearing red. And I'm like, well, I'm sure that red is not the only color of love. My son wore a sweatshirt black this morning. And I said, oh, you're not wearing red. And he said, Mom, black is the color of love. And I believe every color is a color of love. White is a color of love. Green is a color of love. Blue, whatever it is that you believe in, just relax. Today is going to be really powerful. I have an amazing guest today, and I'm so grateful to be able to have this man of God. I met this man of God in December last year, and I just took to their family. I just took to his family. I met him, I met his wife, I met the children. And I was even trying to chip into the wife that one day they're going to be on this program. I didn't know that it was going to be this soon, and then a son on the Lord mentioned and talk about, oh, there's this man of God. He's an amazing man. He's a true man of God. He does things, I'm like, oh my goodness. And when I got to know the man of God, the same man of God, talking about all things work together for good, talking about in God's time, making all things beautiful. And so today, with gladness in my heart, I'd like to welcome our guest, Pastor Seun Aleshe. Pastor Seun is the pastor of the Global Harvest Church here in Maryland. The headquarters is in Ibadan. Is it Ibadan now? Yeah, the headquarters is in Ibadan. And the funny thing and the great thing is also that his senior pastor is my mentor's junior brother. So there is another connection right there. So we thank God for that. And his wife is beautiful. She's going to come up very soon, one of these days. She's an amazing woman of God, and I'm really looking forward to that. So, Pastor, thank you so much. So he's a father, he's a husband of one wife, he's a father of 3 children. He's going to tell us a little about himself, and he's also a businessman. So he's not just a pastor. God is blessed him, all around blessing. So, Pastor, you are welcome, sir.
Thank you very much, Pastor Tolu. It's such a joy to be here with you on the program. I am so grateful for the opportunity. I know it's a Monday, which is a work day, very busy day, but I'm glad that we could make this work. And I'm so grateful to God for you, for your life. I certainly took to liking you and your family as well when we met last Christmas. And it's such a joy to see your boys and to see them all grown, tall, almost intimidating, surrounding mommy. And to see them well cultured, mannered. And it is very obvious that you love God, that they love God as well. And it's such a joy and an honor to be here, man. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome, sir. So today, we want to talk about, we're talking Valentine, so we're going to talk about love. We're going to talk about love today. So I want to ask you, Pastor, what does love means to you? What is love? If you are to give your definition, explanation, what is love?
I think the perfect definition of love can only be found in God. And I say that not to sound religious, but it was the late Dr. Miles Monroe of blessed memory that said to really understand the purpose of a thing, you should go to the source of that thing. My pastor, who happens to be the younger brother of your mentor, like you said, once said that the source of a thing is the sustainer of that thing.
Mm,
Everything that we see today, the source must be the sustainer. Let me give an example. You look at the grass, vegetation, that will say God spoke to the ground to bring forth vegetation. And so the plant that we see, the source is the ground. If you take it out of the ground, then the plant is going to die.
mm,
God spoke to the water to
mm,
bring forth fishes and all creature in water. If you take the fish or water creatures out of water, they're going to die.
mm,
God spoke to man and said, let us make man out of our own image. So the source of man is God. And that is the reason why every time we make efforts or folks take man or everything that associates with man out of the context of God,
mm,
then it loses the value. I said
mm,
all of that to say that we truly cannot understand love. And I know we're going to go into more of this conversation as we move on, except we truly go to the source of love, which is God. First John
mm,
4 tells us in plain terms that God is love. He that loves is of God. He that does not love is not of God. So,
mm,
what is the definition of love? I would
mm.
say the definition of love truly is to be godly. To be godly. Because God is the true essence of love. So everything that speaks about God definitely speaks about love. And I don't want to go ahead and start jumping ahead of myself into First Corinthians, talking about the qualities of love and the characteristics of love and all of those. But I would just say for now that God is love. And for us to truly experience love, it must be from God and what it truly represents of God.
Wow, that was awesome. So, Pastor, when you want to, I know it's normal for a man to say "I love you" to the wife. So, when you say "I love you" to your wife, what does that mean? What are you saying? Some people, I mean, sometimes the word can just be the normal thing that people, oh, I love you, like the word. So what does it mean? Because viewers out there should be able to know when I say I love you, maybe everybody should think before saying the word to be able to understand what it means. So if you say I love you to your wife, what are you saying to her? I mean, the things you can say out here.
Oh, absolutely. Maybe I can say everything actually. But to say I love you is truly saying that I honor you
Hmm.
and I endow you
Hmm.
with who I am.
Hmm.
And I know that that sounds really, I don't know the best word to use, but when I say to my wife, I love you, is truly saying, with everything that love represents, I choose to love you. Because, Pastor Tolu, I believe that love is not a feeling, it is a commitment. And
Hmm.
that's the reason why just saying of love and the euphoria and the butterfly feelings that come with love does not really sustain a marriage. What
mm,
sustains a marriage is the commitment to consistently love, because there would be days, and I know you would agree with me, ma'am, that there will be days that you don't feel like loving, but you choose to love regardless.
mm,
So
mm,
when I say I love you to my wife or I say it to my children, it is an expression of a commitment that I am
mm,
committed to you no matter what,
mm,
regardless of your shortcomings or what it is that you represent. I choose to love you, and that's exactly what it is. And of course, we can now see the expression of that love in the things that I do, which first of all is giving. You can't
mm,
love without giving, even though people give without loving. But again,
mm.
perhaps at some point we'll get into some of those conversations as we move along. But love
Mm.
truly is saying that I choose to love you, and it is a commitment that I'm making to you.
Wow. Pastor, you know, when you said that word that love is not love is not just feelings. How do we come about it these days? You know, a lot of people just say, "Oh, I love you," you know, because they feel that way. And that's how people get into marriage too. "Oh, I feel this way about this person. Oh, we're in love." And then they just get married. And they, after getting married, they come to understand that, "Oh, what I felt was not what I'm into is deeper than what I thought I felt." So I want you to please talk to people like that that feel like, "Oh yeah, is you're feeling not in love to get into the commitment," because you talk about the commitment of love. You're talking about the actions of love. So how they, especially for young people that feel that, "Oh yeah, I feel it." And then in marriage, if you don't feel it again, you can come out of it. You know, so how do we how do we deal with those area for
Well,
people?
very good question, ma'am. I like to counsel young people. I'm a young person myself, but so I should say younger people.
I'm still young too. We're all young.
Absolutely. Um, a man of God once said that if you say love is blind, then marriage will open your eyes.
Mm,
It is certainly more than feelings. And anybody that's been married for at least 1 week, or let me say a month, would agree that loving someone is more than the feelings that we have. Feelings are good. If we again come back to God, God smiles on us. God loves us. He expresses the love that He has for us. There are times when we do certain things and God is excited and He brags about us and is truly excited about us. Now, that's not to say that when we do other things that are not really nice, that He stopped His love for us. No, He doesn't. His love is permanent, it's unconditional.
mm,
But there
mm,
are certain things that we do that He may not like. So I can look at my child or my son or my daughter, for example, and say, that I love you, but I do not love what you do. So
mm,
I said all of that to say that love certainly goes beyond feeling. And that's the reason why our younger people, and even maybe people that are not very young, because Pastor Tulu, honestly, I've seen people that are old in age, but are still very immature, and we can
mm,
call them babies as well. That love is certainly more than the feelings. It goes beyond that to, for example, I don't even think you can truly express love or experience love with somebody that you don't know. Uh,
mm,
there is a level of love that we express to people in the outer court, but there is a deeper level of that commitment, and
mm,
that's the reason why you can't just make commitment to everybody like that. Uh,
mm,
of course, God, Jesus commands us to love everybody, but not at the same degree that we would, or that, for example, that I will love my wife or I will love my children. So I said all of that to say it's beyond the feelings, it's about being selfless. It's about being, the Bible says, First Corinthians, that love forgives. Love does not keep record of wrongs. Love is patient. There's
mm,
another one that we joke with. We say that when patience is finished, then it goes to long suffering. Because love also suffers long. When you are patient, and then in a marriage relationship, for example, there's a time that it will go beyond the patience and goes to long suffering. And I emphasize that long because that is what love is, and it is a commitment. So it's not just the butterfly feelings or the emotions that go into it. It is truly comes back to that commitment that I spoke about earlier.
wow. So let's talk about, that's why, what do you think about, you said something about knowing, you have to know the person, you know, and people talk about love at first sight and all of those things. I think there is attraction at first sight, but not necessarily love at
Yeah.
first sight, you know. And let's talk about self-love, Pastor. You said something about when you were defining of about giving that person what you are worth. I always believe that one is not capable to love others when you don't love yourself. Can you please explain that? Because I see a lot of people being in abusive relationship. I talked about abusive relationship last week, and a lot of people have written emails and everything like that to me talking about their experiences. And I feel that do people really love themselves, to a point where they can recognize love, and when it's not love, that they love themselves enough to know that this is not love. I should not go into marriage with that. Please, let's talk about that.
Pastor Tolu, you are absolutely correct. I don't think anybody can truly love the other person without first loving themselves. Because you can't give what you don't have.
Mm,
Self-awareness and self-love is absolutely important. And I believe personally that this is the reason why we have a lot of issues with relationships.
mm,
People get
mm,
into marriages and expecting that their joy and their happiness is based on the other party. You are giving
mm,
that person too much power.
mm,
Nobody has a right. And I say that with every sense of responsibility. Nobody has a right for your happiness. You are primarily first
mm,
responsible for your own happiness and for your own fulfillment. Whatever any other person gives should be an addition.
mm,
So you truly cannot even say you love someone if you have
mm,
not gotten to the point that you first love, that you are in love with yourself. Which is why we typically will tell people, take yourself out for lunch, take yourself out for
mm,
dinner. You should be able to enjoy your company, me company first. So that if there's any reason why you now don't have the benefits or the opportunity of the other person's company, then you are not miserable. But a
mm,
lot of people believes that if there's no such a person or somebody that loves you or somebody that is there, then they live miserable lives. I think that when people even go into love relationships, and I'm talking in context of marriage now,
mm,
with the mindset of that person is coming to make me better, then that is even a wrong foundation for that marriage. It should
mm,
start with you. And I
mm,
mentioned earlier about you truly cannot even fully love a person until you know the person, because
mm,
even God, our depth of love for God grows every day. The more
mm,
we know Him, the more we love Him, the more we appreciate Him. So I could say there's a type of love, or there's a portion of love that is permanent, meaning whether this person does wrong or does right, we know I still love you. I'm still not going to hurt you. I'm still not going to. But if you start hurting me, I won't hate you, but I may practice social distancing. I'll just remove myself from the context or from the position where you continue to hurt me. So I want to. We cannot overemphasize it, Pastor. that you truly cannot even begin to love the other person until you first loved yourself. You are comfortable with yourself. And then nobody that is perfect. But if you are waiting for the other person to be the one that will make you happy, to be the one that will be everything, then you are making that person a God in your life.
mm,
And nobody can wear the shoes of God in the other person's life. So it is in our own personal pursuit of loving ourselves. And that takes me back to the other thing I said earlier, Pastor Tolu. I don't want to sound like I'm preaching, but I found out that we truly cannot even fully love ourselves outside of God, because
mm,
God made us. It is in our
mm,
pursuit of God, in our love relationship first with God, that we understand our own value, our own worth. So whoever comes in has something to come and benefit. When people tell me I'm looking for that Mr. Right or Mrs. Right, the question I ask is, what value are you looking forward to giving that person?
mm.
If all you are doing is just waiting for the person to bring all the goodies like their Father Christmas, and you have nothing to give in return, then that relationship is certainly not going to work. So it starts with first loving ourselves, and
Wow.
especially in our context of our relationship with God.
Okay. Thank you, Pastor. You know, Valentine is past 12 here. And why people are still, some people are gonna be so sad at the end of the day because they're waiting for the man to come take them for dinner, or the woman or the husband to come take them for dinner. And if that person is not there, you know, like you rightly say, you take yourself out. You can still get a table. You can still make yourself happy. I mean, it took me a long time to learn this. That's the truth. And I'm still learning that, you know, to be that person, that to tell yourself that, you know what, I'm happy. They say one with God is a majority. So at least you have God. Pastor, let's talk about couples. Let's talk about love. I've had to deal with a whole lot of issues with people in marriage, and sometimes the woman is not behaving well in the marriage, and I'll ask, do you love your husband? I will say, yes, of course I do. And then the husband the same way too, not treating the wife well. And then you say, do you love your wife? Of course I know. She knows that I love her. You know, what are the practical things that we talk about? Because love is an action word. What about the practical things? And then I'm going to link that with when the Bible talks in Ephesians chapter 5, when the Bible says, husband, love your wife. Sometimes I joke and I say, well, God didn't say, wife, love your own husband. It says submit. But of course, it's still, both of them have to love one another. But the husband as the head of the home, how can a husband show why love to the wife, you know, apart from opening the Bible to her? Let's practical ways that husband out there can show love, not just I love you. How can
I
you
think
show that love?
opening the Bible as a show of love is an irresponsible way to show love, in my opinion. Because the Bible itself clearly tells us how we are to demonstrate the love. God is perfect in all that he does and he says, and his word is complete and is perfect. That Ephesians chapter 5 that you quoted, man, it says, husband, love your wife. He didn't leave it hanging. It tells us exactly how to love our wives. He said, as
Mm,
Christ loved the church.
yeah.
And so we truly cannot understand how to love our wives except we understand first how Christ loved the church. And then
Mm,
that scripture went further to say, does not just love the church, like you said, is an action word. He said, gave himself for the church.
mm,
So to all husbands that are listening or watching, and to those that are husbands to be, Christ has told us that the way to love our wives is as Christ loved the church, by giving ourselves. Jesus sacrificed his life for the church. He literally
mm.
died for the church.
Uh,
Not saying that we all now should start committing suicide or killing ourselves for our families, but the point I'm trying to make is that we must love our wives and love our family to the point that we are willing to give everything that we have. Which is why, again, I spoke earlier about endowing our spouses with everything that we have. So, what are the
mm,
practical ways? Number one, you
mm,
want to love your wife by even understanding what your wife likes and what she doesn't.
mm,
Pastor,
mm,
I have found out a lot of times people say they love, but they are not kind.
mm,
Whereas kindness, the word kindness, I was preaching in church yesterday, and I said that kindness has become something that is so not common anymore.
mm,
Simple act of kindness. If I love you, I don't want to hurt you. So
mm,
even though I feel that what I'm doing, there's no big deal, but because it will hurt you, I'm willing to sacrifice
mm,
that
mm,
you do not get hurt.
mm,
We can love without giving, for example. I
mm,
said earlier that we can give without loving, but we can love without giving. God demonstrated his love to us by giving his only begotten son.
mm,
So we must be givers. We must give to our wives. This
mm.
concept of husband having secrets or having this or not, no. It's totally anti-Bible.
Mm,
And once we do anything against the very foundation of the one that ordained love and founded love, then the same thing that Dr. Miles Monroe of blessed memory said: when the purpose of a thing is not known, abuse is inevitable. So husband must love our wives by sometimes, Pastor Tolu, is as simple as just listening to our wives,
mm.
just hearing them out. Somebody once said that a lot of times when a woman talk, they are not expecting the husband to provide solution. They just want to express themselves. Just listen. It is in the talking that they themselves will tell you the solution to the issue that they are talking about.
Yes.
So everything that we can, and I don't want to talk too much on this, but one of the things that I think have helped me personally and helped a lot of people that I know is understanding our spouse's love language, for example.
Mm,
So, a couple, Gary Chapman and his wife talked to us about the five love languages, the acts of love, affection, the love, the touch, and the acts of service, and all of those, and gift for some people.
mm,
A lot of times, Pastor Tolu, I want to love my wife in my own language. So let's say my own
mm,
language, act of service, then
mm.
I believe that when I do certain acts of service to my wife, I'm loving her. Whereas our own love language is words of affirmation, or our own love language is gifts. So even going on to understand the peculiarity of our wives, of our
Mm.
husbands, understanding their love language and giving them love in the language that they understand itself is an act of love.
Kai, Pastor, you have said a lot that I believe that a lot of people really blessed out there. You mentioned some very powerful words. For me, for years now, for me, if I'm to define love in one word, if I'm to say what love means in one word, the word I will use is kindness. And I've been using that words now for years. And you mentioned that word kindness. People don't know how to be kind to another, and it's sad. But what is even more sad is when people know what kindness is, if it's not coming to them. Oh, it's not kind to me. She's not kind to me. You know what kindness is to you, but you don't know what kindness is to somebody else. And then you talk about sacrifice, which when you quote that scripture about Jesus gave himself for us, the act of love there, that was great sacrifice that Jesus did. And these days it's also missing in relationship. And I like the part when a man to love his wife like like Christ loved the church. Oh my goodness. Christ is always pursuing the church. It's just a good feeling, like husband, start pursuing me. I want you to, I want you to share, keep pursuing me, keep coming after me. And I think it's very, very important, even though I always said that what the man needs, the woman also need also. They need it that in their different, unique way, but it's the same thing. A man loves respect. A woman wants to be respected also. All of those things are together. So I really appreciate that you talk about kindness. I'm going to ask you, I didn't plan this, but I'm going to ask something. Averagely, why is it that men seems to think about themselves really on a very, this is not about gender issue. Even in my case, I've seen some women that are just all about themselves, and sometimes I want to ask, are you really a woman? Because for me, a woman is known for sacrifice. We want to do the sacrifice. We want to go extra mile. We want to keep our family. And unfortunately, I see some women that are just, it's not about anybody, it's about them. But why is it that men usually have that? Like you said, give yourself. Give yourself for me will be, I'm thinking deep, I'm thinking give your time, I'm thinking give your credit card, I'm thinking give of everything. But men really like struggle. Let's cut out the credit card, because some women you don't even want to try for them to know the last four digits of your credit card. If not, you'll be in trouble. But generally, why is it that men struggle, to give in the marriage? And most times the women seems to give more in marriages.
I would say a few reasons. Number one is the human nature by default is selfish. It takes a lot to be selfless. It takes a lot to be kind. It
Mm,
takes a lot you said something earlier, Pastor, that Jesus pursues the church. The church will miss it. You and I will miss it so many times. And I love to give the example of the prodigal son because it clearly demonstrates the kind of love that the Father has for us. The prodigal son went and wasted away all of the good that he had received of the father. Number one, he collected his inheritance while the father was alive, and he
mm, mm,
went and wasted everything. But Pastor Tolu, in that story, when the boy came back to himself and said, I will go and meet my father, and I know he will make me, as worst case, he will make me as one of his servants. Number one, the boy knew that even a servant was cared for by the father. That
mm,
was love. What
mm,
attracted the boy back home was pure love.
mm,
Saying that even if it does not bring me back to the place of being a son, as a servant, Pastor Tulu, how many people are even very cruel and unkind to their servants, to the people that work for them?
mm,
One of my favorite preachers once said, "You know a wicked man from the way he kills mosquito," and that sounds like a
mm,
funny thing. I say when you see a good man, and this is a joke actually, want to kill mosquito, he just does the thing or stays away. But when you see a wicked man wants to kill a fly, I say, like I am going to so deal with it. That is to start showing you the signs. A lot of times when people get into marriage and they say my husband changed, I hardly believe it because there were always those tendencies. We just fail, or a woman changed. We just fail to look at those things. So number one, I said that it is by human nature that people are just selfish. Number two, is if you truly don't value that person, is
mm,
now more difficult to love that person. The reason
mm,
why Jesus would always pursue the church is because of the value that he has placed on the church.
mm,
He values the church so much that he was willing to lay down his life and give everything to the church. And
mm,
that is why I think spouses also need to step up. Not to say that what you do or you don't do is what will make your husband love you, but you also want to consistently add value to yourself. You also want to
Mm,
shack him. I use the word shack in the language that a lot of people will understand. You need to keep letting him or letting her see that you value. A lot of people are just all they can get and get and get and get and get. And eventually that person is going to get tired.
mhm,
He's going to get tired. So you also need to consistently make effort. I believe that that relationship or marriage has to be I give to you, you give to me, I
yeah.
give to you. Even God demands our worship.
Mhm,
God
mhm,
demands our worship. We worship God, we honor him, we extol him, we adore him, then he rain down his blessings on us, and then we
mhm,
love him in return. That is the way it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be a mutually beneficial thing and not just one-sided. So first, I said two things. First, it is selfishness that makes people not to be kind or to love. Number two is also because we are also not giving something in return. So the person at some
mm.
point just, you know what, there's really no point, and then they get tired.
Yeah, thank you so much, Pastor. When you said something about when it's one-sided, the other person gets tired. And then I see that all the time. I've seen women, even sometimes men, a man is trying to make every effort and is the one all the time. I keep saying something. I say one person can keep the marriage from breaking completely, but it takes the two to make the marriage happy. It has to be a teamwork. So somebody is trying to, every time is the one, I've had to cancel people that is one partner that is always apologizing.
Mm,
The other partner is just there. And you said something that is very strong, Pastor. You said the value that you place. Some people are in a marriage and the marriage is like a joke to them.
mm,
Some people have a family and the family is like a joke to them. So they place value on every other thing, but not at home. Some people, some men, their supervisor at work is junior to their wives. But because they place better value to that work, everything the supervisor is saying is respect, is honor, but they cannot because the value they place on their family is less than what they place at work. And sometimes people don't understand it, even for some women. Some women, if a pastor says something, yes, sir, yes, sir. But if their husband, with the spirit of God, said they will not hear. Even though some husband, some wife, it is well. God will keep helping everybody. But I'm really grateful that you talk about that value. So we need to place better value. And then you talk about people improving on themselves too. So wives too, they married you, maybe you didn't go to school, you can't read, you can't do everything, and you marry somebody, add value to yourself. So I've seen in this America, I met a white guy. The wife just left him after 10 years of marriage. He
mm.
opted up to be the father that keeps the children. And the
Wow.
wife went about to pursue the career. I mean, there's nothing wrong. In my African mind, it was kind of strange, but that's what he wanted to do. But at the end of the day, the marriage broke and I happened to meet him and he was so sad because he was telling on his health and so on. And he said, I did everything. And I told him something. I said, if you want the honest truth from me, even while you were at home taking care of the children, you could have improved on yourself. I said, because this woman, she's a career person. She's now seeing other men at work. She's seen men talk intelligently. She's seen those. That's not a good excuse, but that was probably the thing. So even while you're at home, do some training. Pastor, I know you are doing some training. I'm learning. Thank you. Thank you for bringing that up. So let's
Yes.
talk about in America, it's happening all over the world too. Let's talk about women that are becoming vulnerable in the name of love. I shared my story I've shared my story several times. I didn't get to know my parent. I don't know my father up to today. I don't know what he looks like. I've never seen him and everything like that. And then I was always looking for my father in the men. And so because they are not my father, that I was vulnerable. I attracted people that are abusive, because the Bible says, don't cast your pearl before the swine. When you have a pearl and you don't know how precious that pearl is, you keep casting it to the wrong place. And there are women and men alike that are being abused. They are vulnerable because they are in search of love. Please,
Mm.
can you say something? Because it's becoming more and more. I lost my money. I lost my house to this man. I lost everything. It's becoming more and more, and it's in both ways. Please talk to us about it.
Pastor, I will start with what the Bible says in First John chapter 4, I think verse 18. It says that there is no fear in love
Mm,
because
mm,
perfect love drives out fear. Because fear has to do with torment.
mm,
And the one who fears, he said, is not made in perfect love. I start there because anytime there is a fear in a marriage situation or in a love relationship, it has gone to become a place of torment for
mm,
either of the parties. Nobody should ever be in that kind of place. Abuse, looking for love, and I'm grateful that you gave yourself as an example earlier when you started off this particular topic of conversation. A lot of people grew up in abusive environments, especially those um, who came from homes that the father was not there, or the uh, mother was not there. I'm sorry about that. For some reason, it's just
mm, yes.
technology sometimes have a mind of its own. Um, then they start looking for love from different places to the point that people start taking advantage of them. That can't be love. That can't be love. And the reason why a lot of people fall into that place is because of the self love that is missing that we discussed about earlier. When somebody truly loves themselves and they know the value that they carry, you had better be willing to pay a premium on that value or you walk away. So nobody should ever be in a relationship where the other person, out of love, is now abusing you. And abuse does not necessarily mean physical abuse. It could be emotional abuse, it could be verbal abuse, and several other types of abuse. Again, I say people should first love themselves, discover
Mm,
themselves, be self aware, be comfortable with who you are. We are all work in progress. I know nobody is perfect,
mm,
but when we love ourselves, the other person we even love it. Pastor Tolu, my parents and the Lord used to say something that how you sell or how you talk about your spouse determines how others will treat your spouse. My parents, biological parents, used to say it differently. They will say that how you treat your family is how others outside will help you treat your family. I add my own to it. How you treat yourself is how
mm,
others will also treat you. Pastor Tulu, if you come to my house and you see the kind of perfumes that I wear, or the kind of belt that I wear, or even the kind of way I clean my house and I arrange things, even something as little as just putting things in proper place. Pastor Tulu, have you found out that people tend to help you do it the way you do it? If
mm,
you're all over, messed up all over the place, then people will feel it's okay to just dump things anyhow. That is why they say, especially when I used to live in Lagos, that if you keep your car clean, no dent, no stain, it's very unlikely somebody scratches you. But if your car is already looking funny, then it's free for all. So
mm,
I said, people put themselves in abusive relationships when they themselves don't value themselves. They don't have
mm,
confidence in themselves. So
mm,
somebody comes in and people can smell it from afar, especially
mm,
predators. They almost can smell it from 10 miles away
mm,
and know that this one is just to be pleasuring and enjoying and abusing that this one. So let's first of all take care of ourselves, take care of your
mm,
heart, take care of who you are. Find out how to improve on yourself, develop habits,
mm,
enjoy your company. Whoever
mm.
comes along is definitely going to treat you with that same level of value.
Wow. That's so powerful, Pastor. That's really, really powerful. I think that's the thing that we're missing. The world is missing right now. Why people are becoming vulnerable. Like Pastor rightly said, is self-worth. If you don't think that you're worth to be treated well, you know, you can. And you said something from the at some point when we started this conversation about the fact that it is not, you have to learn to treat yourself well. You mentioned that about taking yourself out, about doing all of those things. When you do it, people will come and respect you. There are people, the same man that would treat a woman badly will sometimes not be able to treat another woman badly because the woman will not take it. And the same thing for a man too, because when we're talking about abuse, thank you, Pastor, that you mentioned that abuse is not only just physical. In fact, other form of abuse sometimes seems even more terrible than physical abuse because people get into emotional abuse, mental abuse. Some people get into depression. I was sharing, we were talking with a group of people this last week, and somebody told me of a person that killed herself, committed suicide because of the pressure in the home. So it can be that terrible. But when you see yourself, and I said something, I said maybe that woman was afraid to say that even though the marriage was just a year old, even though this marriage is a terrible, this family, this marriage is a terrible thing, maybe she didn't think of herself what to say. I can go home. I can still retrace my step back. Of course, nobody wants to be divorced, but the thing is that would have been better for her than losing her entire life.
Right.
I really appreciate that you mentioned about that you have to love. This loving yourself is not talking about selfishness or pride, but it's talking about self-worth, because the Bible says God is love. So God himself is love, and then he extended that love to us. And some of us have to learn that, because I didn't, like I said, because of the way my grandmother was, the most loving human being I'd known all my life. But the thing is that I was going through things about where was my father. I was looking for things. Sometimes in life you have 80% or something, but that 20% that is missing, the enemy makes it look like is the 80%. And so you're looking for it, and I kept looking for it, and I didn't feel complete in myself, even though I had all of this 80 or even 90%, the love of my grandmother, the love of other family members, but I was still looking for my father had to be the one. Hashem must have this fatherly love. Even when I had the love of God, God started speaking to me since I was 5 years old, going to 6. I had that love, but I was still looking for it. And that led me to become vulnerable to abuse and all kind of things. So maybe people that are there, that are listening to us, please go back and listen to what Pastor said. Love yourself. And Pastor, you said something. If a man comes along the way, fine. if it doesn't. I have a beautiful friend here. She's in her 70s. She never married. She
Mm.
never had her own biological children, but she raised her sisters, other people's children. When we came into the US, I mean, she just took the boys like our own, so it's not everybody is not going to marry at the end of the day.
Right.
That's the hard truth. So thank you so much for saying that. So let's talk about, for us to wrap up this, let's talk about this self-love that we have been talking about since. This self-love. Some people are listening to you, Pastor, and they're like, how do I start? Some are even battling with low self-esteem.
Right.
Some are going about with so much insecurities. They have talked them down, and so you can never amount to things. Those words were said to me, oh, you are a bastard, you cannot become anything. How can they begin to love themselves when they don't even know what this love looks like? How can they start?
Pastor, I'm going to start with where you almost ended, which is a lot of times we have 80%,
Mm,
but Satan closes our eyes to the 80
mm,
and we start looking for the 20.
mm, mm,
And I said that with the understanding that before I come to those who need to love themselves as singles, but even as married, a lot of times people go into a relationship, you admire the other person, you love each other, but then you start comparing them with some other person, and you now start trading the 80 that your spouse has for the 20 or the 30 that the other person has.
mm,
Whereas if you live in the same house with the
mm,
other person, you will
mm,
actually almost want to run back to your to your own house. It's like a pastor that said people should come in church and everybody should write their problems on a piece of paper and bring it to the altar. And they all drop it at the altar. He mixed it and said everybody should now pick other people's problems randomly. And so people started picking other people's problem. And at the end of the service, he said, how many of you are willing to let go of other people's problem and collect back your own problem? Everybody said, you know what, please give me back my own. Let me say. Because a lot of times we look at what we don't have and fail to cherish and love what it is that we have. So I say that to come to those who, so first of all, to those who are married and are beginning to make comparison to feel, oh, maybe I make the wrong decision. You will always find somebody that is better than your spouse. That's the truth.
mhm, mhm.
We and that is
Yeah.
why I said love eventually becomes a commitment. It's a decision
Mm, mm,
that no matter what happens, which is why I like the type of vows that we take in my church. In my church, our wedding service is usually between 45 minutes to 1 hour, Pastor Tolu. We
mm.
just make it very short like that. Say the vows with this ring, ID word to love and to honor. I will restore you with all of that. Bam, 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 everything is done. Why? Because so you get into the marriage and then you now start looking at the other things that that person does not have. It will rob you of all the good things that that person have. Now, going to the singles, a lot of things are still going right with you. For God's sake, can you let marriage not be a God to you anymore? That you now feel, except you get married, that you're not going to be happy. There are a
Mm,
lot of people that are in marriage that are not happy.
mm,
Marriage does not equate happiness. Oh, of course, the Bible says that findeth the wife findeth the good thing and obtains favor. Marriage is beautiful, but only when it is with a right, correct, somebody that his head is correct. I'm
mhm.
forgiven for using that language, but a lot of
No, it's
people
good.
they are not correct.
Mm.
For them
Pastor,
to
when you talk about this head being correct, oh my goodness, it's telling this. That's why I tell people be careful, especially girls, when you have the man that is the head of the family and that head is not correct. Oh my goodness. Oh. The whole body will be sick. And it
Oh my,
goes for the woman too. It's not just the man.
absolutely. I said to our younger ladies, be careful who you say yes, I do to. Because the moment you say yes, I do, you are saying, I submit to your leadership, I
Mm,
submit to your judgments.
mm,
And if
mm,
that person's head is not correct,
mm,
then it's just to keep leading you guys astray. So
mm,
don't let it be when you get in there that you are now trying to now take the wheels of him. Every relationship, every organization must have one head.
mm,
Any organization or any, even an animal, human being,
mm.
if you anybody you see that have two heads is a monster, no longer a
Yeah.
human being.
Mhm,
So when you now start trying to take the wheels, be careful who you make the ship or the captain of your ship.
mm,
So the younger people, for God's sake, enjoy your life. If marriage is not coming yet, just keep enjoying yourself.
mm,
Love yourself. Take care of
mm,
yourself. I
mm.
said earlier, Pastor Tolu, when I was talking about if you come to my house and you see the kind of perfume I wear, or the kind of belt that I use, or the kind of shirt I wear, when you want to buy me a gift, that would influence what type of gift you buy for me.
That's true, Pastor. When I saw you, I saw the kind of things. I saw it.
That's not the point I'm making. But if I come to you and I see that you don't care about what you even use to take care of yourself, you don't. When I want to likely get you a gift, except when I'm knowledgeable like I am, to know that true gift is communicating value from the giver and not just the receiver, then I almost want to go buy you what it is that you have, because it's now about the function of the value that you had placed on yourself. So let them just enjoy themselves. For all the singles that are watching, if you desire marriage, God will bring it. But while you are waiting, please don't make your life a stop while you
Mm,
are waiting.
mm.
Continue adding value, continue being a good person, continue attracting a lot of value to yourself, and then the right person will come along.
Oh, praise God. Pastor, I feel like even though our time is up, but I feel like there's so much. So, but we're gonna have more time to do more things. Pastor, I want you to say final word, please, before we finish
Thank
today.
you, Mom. Final word is let's love God, let's love people. Love God, love yourself, love people. Life is beautiful. I live with this. One of my pastors once said, you start enjoying heaven on earth if you marry right, but you
Mm,
start enjoying experiencing hell on earth if you marry wrong. I know we're
mm,
talking about marriage relationship
mm,
today, but the same thing with business relationships, the same thing with all different types of relationship.
mm,
If you work with the wise, you will be wise. Even the type of friends that we keep, be
mm.
deliberate about it. And God bless you all. Thank you so much, Pastor Tolu. I
Amen.
appreciate
Thank you so much, Pastor Sheon. Thank you. In fact, thank God that you mentioned the business. I'm gonna trust God that you give us time. I know you're a very, very busy person. This year for us as a ministry, God is giving us the word. Of first Joshua chapter 1 verse 8, God is giving us the word good success. So one of these days, whenever you are free, we're going to have time to talk about business for people and how Christians can prosper, the right way. I really want to appreciate you, Pastor. One of the things when you talk about that kindness, one of the things that stood out to me when we met you, when my family met you at Miami, for Demilade Oni's dedication. That's amazing, amazing boy. That boy is. I bless God for his life.
you.
And there was the evening that the boys and I were going to go to the hotel, and Tokwe was obviously really tired. And you came up and you said, I would drop them. That stood out to me because those are the kind of things that we can do as individual when we make loving people and being kind become our culture. When we show the love of Christ to people out there, if it becomes a culture, then to do it at home will not really be difficult at all. Pastor, I want to thank you so much for honoring us, for coming. We appreciate you so much. Please, regard to your lovely wife and your blessed children. Thank you so much. So, viewers out there, please share this video. Please go back and listen to everything that Pastor has said today. It's going to bless your life and it's going to deliver someone out there. These are powerful words that can bring deliverance to people's life. And I pray that the Lord be with you. Please enjoy your evening, your Valentine. If we don't have someone, please, you are you. God has put everything in you. The Bible says we are complete in Christ. You are complete in Christ. I've gone to restaurant and say table for one. It does not hurt anybody. Enjoy yourself. Enjoy God. Accept the love of God and be grateful because the Bible says with everlasting love, he has loved you. Till I see you next week on this same program, Life and Relationship with Tolu Alabi, Realities with Tolu Alabi. See you. God bless. Thank you. Pastor, please hold on.